Have you heard? No servants in the whole school until dinner time. Rick nodded and looked around. The landing was dark, but we could see 2 doors on the right on the left of the kitchen door. So it's our opportunity to take a look at the servants' lodgings. What? That was a bit risky, wasn't it? Well, the whole servants' area was off limits for students, but at least we knew Mrs. Hutchinson had no problem with us being in the kitchen. But the servants' bedrooms? If someone saw us sneaking in there, they would think we were going to steal, or, at least, that we were up to no good. No excuse would work for us in that situation. So if we were caught, we were as good as expelled. Are you sure? You know what would happen if someone sees us, right? Rick nodded, very serious. But it's also our best chance. We have almost all day to take a good look and try to find something suspicious, any evidence that would lead to your attackers. I have just studied their rosters, which was on the kitchen wall, and the cook is right. It will be difficult for us to meet Sarah or Mark or the others directly. Every time they are on duty at the part of the school that we are free to wander, we are in class, so our path won't cross unless we skip class. What? I was parroting, but I was so startled by Rick's determined words that I couldn't find anything else to say. Let's try these doors then, unless you are really against it, dear. No, I'm in, I guess. I smiled at him and pushed the door on the right open. It was simply a storage room with huge boxes of coal sacks of potatoes and stuff like that. We threw a quick look and closed the door again. The other door then? It was the obvious option. We found ourselves in a short corridor with doors on the left and another staircase in the end. We opened all the doors and searched the utility rooms we found. A laundry room, an ironing one, and more storage rooms, this time with a line in cleaning products. So I guess we go up now? Rick smiled, enjoying himself. After you. We climbed the narrow stairs until we arrived at another corridor, long and with doors at both sides ending in yet another staircase. Have I said St. Michael was a labyrinth? There are quite a lot of doors. Yes, but definitely we are now at the bedrooms. Let's search them. We entered together in each and every one of the bedrooms. They were simple with the minimum furniture required. Bed, night table, a wardrobe or a trunk, and little else. Hence searching them was a quick task. We opened every drawer and trunk, and we searched every handbag and coat available. And what exactly were you expecting to find? I don't know. Something. Anything. Something like this. I turned towards him, and just in time to see him studying a photograph with astonishment. What's that picture? Show me. Right then we heard a rustle of clothes outside the bedroom. We shared a quick horrified glance, and Rick opened the wardrobe and pushed aside the hangers with clothes. It was high enough for us to hide inside if we crouched a little, so that was what we did, closing the wardrobe just in time to avoid being seen by one of the maids. The girl, one that we had met in the kitchen earlier, cursed and struggled with the lace of her stained apron. She obviously had come to change it for a clean one. But when she had to take off the stained one, she took the chance to flop onto her bed and play with the music box she had on the night table. Meanwhile, I felt so nervous that I started to feel cold sweat running down my back and dampening my shirt. If we could see her by the slit between the 2 doors, then she could also see us, right? And what if she decided to open the wardrobe? My pulse was racing, and I feared my breathing would betray us in the end. Beside me, Rick looked way calmer than me, until I saw the look of terror in his eyes. Also, our hiding spot was so cramped that we couldn't move at all, and Rick's knee was digging onto my thigh. I placed my hand on my thigh and allowed the light pain, unintentionally brushing Rick's hand. I gasped, startled, and Rick opened his eyes wide and squeezing my hand. I covered my mouth with my free hand and glanced at the maid. She didn't seem to notice my gasp, thank God. Rick didn't let go of my hand, and I did nothing to move away from him. It felt nice and intimate to be there with him, hand in hand. It felt warm and close, and before I knew it, my face was dangerously close to his. Rick turned his face away. Of course, what had I been about to do? What kind of stupid was I? I let go of his hand, mortified. Just a couple of inches more and I would have kissed Rick. Imagining his reaction made me want to die of embarrassment. Rick, who was so kind to me, a good friend, always supporting and reassuring, and I wanted to ruin it all? The girl jumped from the bed, startling us, and practically ran out the door again with her clean apron in hand. We sighed with relief. We counted until 20 and then went out the wardrobe. 100 self-depressing thoughts were running through my mind, and I was so focused on them that Rick had to grab my arm to call for my attention. We better come back to our wing. Aren't you going to ask what is it that we have found? Oh yes, the photo. I almost forgot. Really? What kind of an airhead are you, Alex? He's smiling and showed me the photograph. I looked at it and then back to Rick's face. But that is... Wait, how can it be possible? Yes, Alex, it's you, and about how come a maid has your photo in her purse, I have no explanation, or not one that I like anyway. I took the picture from his hand and studied it closely. It showed me sitting on a chair and smiling shyly, and the person by my side and behind me cut half of my body with scissors were my parents and two of my siblings. I remember this picture. My father took us to a photographer's study, my mother, my brother, John, my sister Margie, and me. It was during last spring. He said he wanted a memory of my mother's birthday, and the last family photo we had was at least 3 years ago. But how has it arrived here, Rick? My father ordered some copies of the photograph, but still it doesn't make sense. Let's go now. Perhaps you should ask some about this picture to your father next time you write your family. No, I don't want them to know there's something off in school. They would worry and then probably would make me go back to our hometown. But you are at risk here. Okay, I get it. Could you at least ask him to want me send copies of these photographs? I know that I could do, of course. We spent the rest of the day studying, or in my case, trying to. It was difficult to focus on our upcoming Latin exam with so many things going on right then. My bowels seemed to be explode. Honestly, until that morning, I didn't believe that there was someone actually trying to harm me in St. Michael's. I preferred to believe in what the head teacher had said. Just a coincidence, a clumsy fall down the stairs and a burglar trying to enter the school and meeting me by chance. But right then, after finding my photograph in a servant's room, that line of thought wasn't sustainable. The knowledge of being the target of a murderer was deeply unsettling, and I couldn't help wondering why, and why me? The Latin verbs didn't seem very important next to that. And then Rick. To think that same morning I had been about to kiss him, the last thing I wanted was for him to hate me. I wanted to keep being his friend, to enjoy that school year beside him, and Monty and Damien as well, of course. I couldn't afford being sent back home now. No way. I wanted to stay in St. Michael's for as long as I could. That eliminated the possibility of telling everything to my parents or the head teacher. So the only option left was asking for help again from my friends. Monty was flabbergasted when he showed him the photo and told him what we had done. I can't believe you guys did that without me. It's so unfair. I wanted to help too. I chuckled. I imagined that would be Monty's reaction. Well, I'm sure I will need your help sooner or later. Who was the room? We need to go to the head teacher and tell them. Now we have the photo as evidence. Hold on. We only knew it was a woman's bedroom and a shared one. We think it might be Sarah's, but it's not as if we have evidence. The head teacher will interrogate her and obtain evidence, or the police will. I struggled to find my words uneasy. Monty, Alex doesn't want to go to the head teacher, not yet at least. Monty frowned and watched me closely. Why? I don't get it. If we are in danger, we should go to the authorities. He is afraid his parents will make him leave the school and go back home. I thanked Rick mentally. It sounded ridiculous, and I knew I was acting as a spoiled child, but I couldn't help it. Monty seemed to consider Rick's word for a moment. Then what? Do you want us to pay detectives? I shrugged, staring at my feet. He sighed and came closer, and before I could react, there were 2 arms thrown around my shoulders and squeezing me. You dumb kid. Of course we will help you with this. You only had to ask, right, Rick? Yes. I smiled timidly, immensely relieved. Thank you. You two are the best mates one could ask for. I'm so lucky that you are my friends. Yes. Don't sweat it. We have a party to attend after dinner, remember? He let go of me and rummaged through his school bag, taking out a bottle of vodka with a greed-winning smile. Ta-da! You really did it. Unbelievable. How could you convince your cousin? Okay, let it be. I don't want to know. I shook my head, chuckling. Monty was really something else. After dinner, we headed to the party. It was in a bedroom similar to ours, so it was crammed with the whole cricket team trying to fit inside. Monty wasn't the only one that had brought alcohol, and soon there were bottles running around the small group of boys. They told jokes, laughed out loud, and nobody seems to mind that Rick and I were there with them. If only they kept elbowing us to join the turn of jokes and funny stories, but the 2 of us were too shy to take part in that. Monty, on the contrary, was having the time of his life. I looked at him with fondness. He obviously enjoyed being the center of attention. He made animal imitations for us, then tried to make the impression of a couple of teachers with less success, but funny anyway. His face was redder with the hour. I guess mine was the same with how hot it was with so many people put together in that small space. But I also noticed the way he staggered after a while, and how long were gulps he drank every time a bottle reached his hands. And here I was worried about how I would react if I drank. The most I had drunk in my whole life was a punch during Christmas and a couple of small glasses of hot spiced wine now and then in the winter. I was trying to control myself because I was too conscious of Rick by my side and the way he smiled shyly at me every time we shared a pointed look when Monty said something silly and too loud. I would never repeat the mistake of that morning, so I had to make sure that I was going to behave properly from then on. And then, unexpectedly, Monty fell down on his face. Rick and I hurried to help him to his feet. What's wrong? Why is everything moving? We all laughed, and Rick and I grabbed our friends by his armpits and carried him back to our bedroom. Enough fun time for Monty for a night. We removed from Monty's jacket and shoes before he complained aloud about being manhandled that way, so he tried to sit up on his bed, and we just had to help him a little bit with his pajamas. I swear he was snoring even before his head touched his pillow. Rick and I stood there beside Monty's bed and held our gaze for a long moment, until my pulse started to hasten, beating loudly in my ears. I couldn't decipher his face, but he seemed expectant. Oh my gosh, why is Monty snoring like a bear? And what's that booze smell? Don't tell me you boys have been drinking. Rick looked aside and the moment was gone. The cricket team is throwing a party at Louis' bedroom. You can try to enter. They're all rather drunk right now, and I doubt they will notice if someone else joins. Nah, I knackered. I just want my bed right now, Sam. Can you do something about this snoring? We won't be able to sleep. A wink with such a racket. I chuckled quietly and pushed Monty until he was sleeping on his side. The snoring lowered to a bearable level. Oh, good. Hey, I still can't believe that you those kids attend a party and even drank alcohol. We laughed, actually a little tipsy as well, and got ready for bedtime. I had a hard time trying to get sleep. My head buzzed, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw Rick's gaze focused on mine, with this tiny timid smile in his serious eyes, and he seemed to be questioning me, asking me, "What?" I felt so confused, nothing made sense anymore. The next day, of course, we had a hard time trying to wake Monty up, and at the end we left him asleep and told Wilson he was feeling unwell. It wasn't really lying, right? During the next days, we discussed what to do about the photograph. If you don't want to go to the head teacher or your parents, I'm out of ideas, Alex. I still think we should pass this issue to an adult. There are things we can try before that. Yes? Like what? Let's talk to Sarah and find out what she is up to. How? We can ask her in front of the other servants in the kitchen. She won't say a word to us. Sarah is private and rather rude. Well, she's in charge of checking the fireplace next Sunday, before leaving for her day off. Did you read it on the servants' roster? How can you remember that? Rick frowned at him as if the answer was too obvious to bother in answering. I giggled at Monty's embarrassed face. Alright, genius. Gosh, we're lucky to have you with us. Rick smiled at those words. It felt good having Rick feeling proud of himself for once. Yeah, I would despair without your help. Could you cut it, please? He was beet red and kept fixing his glasses in an embarrassing twitch. We planned something as simple as waiting for Sarah in one of the halls that we knew would be empty on a Sunday morning and confronting her as soon as she came to check the fireplace. But when Sunny arrived, a note delivered first thing in the morning changed our plans. Rick read it and made a ball with the paper red with anger. What was that? What happened? Rick answered through gritted teeth. I have a visitor, it seems. A visitor? Who's that? You weren't expecting anyone, were you? Rick's reply was scoffing and leaving our bedroom in a hurry. Monty and I shared a startled look and crouched to pick up the ball of paper from the floor. I smoothed the piece of paper and read it quickly. What does it say? My heart sank. It's Rick's parents and his fiancée. What? His fiancée? Hurry up, I want to see her. But, Monty, I don't know if Rick would. Oh, come on, I need to see how she like. It will be the first time I see the fiancée of one of my friends. He had a point. I was kind of curious myself, if only that feeling wasn't accompanied by a knot in my throat. Okay, let's go. Perhaps it wasn't a good idea after all, but I only realized it after Rick saw us in the hall and actually flinched. Of course, Monty came closer with a big smile and had a hand already stretched for a handshake. Good morning, sir. Mr. O'Connor, right? I'm Monty Johnson. I don't know if you remember me. Of course, Rick. Of course, Rick's roommate. How do you do, young man? I hope your father's company is doing well, as always. Ah, yes, they have just opened another factory in Newcastle. Good, good. Rick, I bet this boy is a good influence for you. It's rather the opposite, sir. You'd be lost without Rick's help with math. Yes, the boy has always had a good head. By his side, Rick was pale and visibly upset. I thought perhaps I should introduce myself as well, but I was too distressed by the sight of the gentle girl behind Rick's parents. Are you another of his roommates? She was looking at me. I nodded shyly and tried to think of something to say, but couldn't find any words. I regretted feeling so uneasy when talking to strangers. I thought spending that year in a boarding school far from home would help me to overcome my shyness, but it wasn't that easy, it seemed. How do you do? That's all I managed to mumble. Rick's father shook my hand without even looking at me, still chattering with Monty. And then I found another hand stretched in front of me. It was small and narrow, covered in a white leather glove, and its owner was the gentle brown-haired girl that accompanied Rick's parents. His fiancée. I took her hand with care and offered her a kind smile by muttering my name. She looked like a doll, dressed and hair-styled in a delicate and fine taste, and it took me a while to realize she wasn't really pretty, with how nicely she presented herself. In fact, when I observed her with the corner of my eye, she seemed more the clever type than the sweet and innocent kind of girl. I couldn't help to admit that suited Rick quite well. I just have an idea, Monty. Monty, why don't you and your friend give us a walk by the school grounds where Rick and Suzanne go for a stroll on their own? They have barely had time to talk in a while, you see. Rick opened his mouth to complain, but he ended up pressing his lips together in a tight white line and offering his arms to Suzanne. They left in front of us, heading towards the woods, while our small group, Rick's parents, Monty, and I, headed to the cricket grounds. Monty chattered happily about the cricket team, and I was left to keep Mrs. O'Connor's company. Rick and Suzanne make such an adorable couple, don't you think? Yes, they look like a perfect match. I sighed and looked aside to hide my pained face. Rick joined us again after lunch. How was it? Did they take you to a coffee for lunch? Shut up, you traitor. Why did you appear in the hall after me? He was still furious then. Monty just shrugged and laughed it off. How would I miss the chance of taking a good look to your fiancé? Susan is actually quite cute. Not very talkative, but that's supposed to be a good trait in a wife, right? Was it so boring? More frustrating than boring. We were reaching our bedroom when Rick's angry mask slipped away and he just looked serious and concerned. Wait, Alex, can we talk for a moment? Monty stopped as well by my side. Rick blushed and stuttered without daring to look at him in the eye. Monty, would you mind? What is it? I need to talk to Alex. Could you wait for us in our bedroom or in the study room? Monty seemed surprised, but he just nodded. Okay. I take my books and head to the study room then. I blinked twice, watching as Monty left us alone. You see? I told you he wouldn't get angry. But what is it that you want? Rick's face was still red and seemingly embarrassed. Oh no, something happened with his family, I thought. Perhaps he has finally dared to argue with his father? With that in mind, I grabbed Rick's forearm and pushed him to start walking. Let's go out and then you call me what's wrong, alright? The small front garden was empty since the afternoon was rather cold, the morning sun and its feeble warmth long gone, and it had never happened. We buttoned up our coats and started wandering by the garden. So, what happened? Is something wrong with your father? Not more than usual. Then, is it about Suzanne? Yeah, you could say so. But instead of talking, he said it loudly. Hey, I can't guess if you don't. He cut me off mid-sentence. My mother kept saying that you said Suzanne and I looked like a perfect match. She told me at least 5 times during lunch. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you really think that? I stopped and stared at him, startled. Why, yes, I guess. Look, I'm... So all of this time I have been misreading you? Because I was certain that you would feel bad about meeting my fiancé face to face, and then you come and smile and tell my mother we look good together. His shoulders shook with a silent sob. Rick? My blood throbbed loudly on my ears and my hands trembled, but anyway I couldn't help but come closer to Rick and take his hands in mine. What was it? There was no way he was saying that I thought he was saying. He raised his face and looked eyes with me, his gaze shivering with unshed tears. I wanted to say something, but the knot in my throat made it difficult. I could only breathe his name again. I've liked you since the day we met, Alex. But Monty took you under his wing from the start, so I thought I would never be able to even approach you. I shook my head. How could he think that? But then you were so kind and nice to me, and even said you were my best friend, and the way you look at me lately. I remembered the expecting look on his face the day after the party. Was he hoping that I would try to kiss him again at that moment? Or perhaps he wanted me to say something? And I thought he was sheerer than me. Rick could be shy, but he was obviously the braver of the two. Right then, I decided the 2 of us have been waiting enough. It was my turn to make a move. You didn't misread me, Rick. My voice was far from confident, but at least I was able to find my words. I glanced around. We seemed to be alone in the garden. Anyway, I suddenly pulled one of his hands and started walking towards the side of the school, where the landscape garden ended, and there were only a couple of warehouses, and a bit far away the woods started. I stopped by the school wall and cupped his face in my hands. Rick opened his eyes wide in surprise. Kissing Rick was nothing like kissing Damien. That had been hot and overwhelming, yes, but this was so sweet that my whole body seemed to melt. Rick pushed me softly to the wall until I was resting my back against it, and I was glad to have the extra support because my knees didn't seem to want to support my whole weight. We pecked and sucked on each other's lips, and every tiny brush of our tongues was electric, daring to play with only the tips, still too shy to let go completely. But Rick's hands were on my waist, slipping up my back, and exciting our whole body shudder and a gasp. He leaned back a little, enough to look into each other's eyes, and we shared an embarrassed laugh. I'm glad I was right. And I'm glad you were brave enough to speak. You know, I would have never dared to. Then I would have waited in vain till the end of the school year. It would have been a waste. Certainly. And I leaned in on the tips of my toes to kiss him again. We enjoyed of our closeness for some minutes more, but I didn't miss the way Rick's eyes scanned around us every few moments. I wasn't at ease myself, of course. We were alone, but we didn't know when someone would come and see us. I guess we should go back, or Monty will start questioning us. Yes, it will be the best. His face was serious, but there was a glint in his eyes that wasn't previously there. I grinned, happy, and tightened my embrace. Rick burst out laughing by shaking me off. Ouch, Alex, you're strangling me. Let's go back. We let go of each other reluctantly and started walking towards the main door. Wait, what are we going to say to Monty? A shadow of fear crossed his features. I think of an excuse if you ask, if it's alright with you. I nodded and offered him a reassuring smile. Everything seemed easier and better right then. I still couldn't believe Rick returned my feelings and had done so since the start. How could I have been so oblivious? Alex, there's nothing going on between Damien and you, right? I froze on the spot. What? Don't get me wrong, I know I'm too suspicious, I'm really sorry, and Justice stares at you a lot lately, and I don't like the look in his eyes at all. What are you talking about? Forget about Damien, please. Oh my god, I thought, he's really observant. Damn Damien. Look, I don't have any interest in Damien or in Monty, so stop overthinking things. I have feelings for you, okay? So don't make me feel more embarrassed. Rick grinned, and I swear his eyes sparkled. Stop being so cute, I will kiss you again, no matter if it's in front of everybody. Don't you dare. We laughed and raced each other to our bedroom. We arrived there breathless, but grinning from ear to ear, and we refused to answer any of Monty's questions. I knew we were in fact piquing his curiosity further, but we were too happy to mind right then. From then on, it was difficult to concentrate on my studies and in planning how to approach Sarah and find out who was trying to murder me. It was way easier to daydream about the next time I would be able to spend some moments alone with Rick and enjoying more of his kisses. Thank God Rick had a clearer head than me. So, when we are going to try to speak to Sarah again? I have been thinking about that too, yes. Did he? Damien, who was sitting in front of me in our usual dining table, frowned and studied our faces. It's true. Is there any news on the topic? You guys don't explain anything to me. It's not our fault. You always go on your own. Monty's tone was a bit aggressive, so I cut him before things got a chance to get heated. I told Damien about our little incursion to the servants' area and about our findings. Well, that's interesting. I haven't seen that Mark guy again. Now that I think about it, I will go down to the kitchen this afternoon and talk a bit with Sarah. That was my idea too. Alex and I will go with you. Damien shook his head. Mrs. Hutchinson will get mad at me if the three of us appear in the kitchen at the same time. Rick hovered and looked down at his food, frowning. Okay. Das ist tatsächlich schwer. Ich würde jetzt rein aus dem Bauchgefühl würde ich sagen, try to think of something else together, weil es ist echt ja, ich würde nehmen try to think of something else together. Allerdings, bevor wir da weitermachen, werde ich mich verabschieden. Meine Stimme ist langsam sehr kaputt. Und ihr merkt wahrscheinlich auch schon, dass ich mich ständig verließ. Und deswegen würde ich mich für heute verabschieden. Und wir sehen uns das nächste Mal in einer neuen Aufnahme. Und immerhin haben wir es geschafft, ähm, Rick zu küssen. Also wir sind auf dem richtigen Weg. Und ich würde sagen, da machen wir das nächste Mal einfach weiter. Bis dahin, auf Wiedersehen.